Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Coaching Spotlight episode. I'm Iris. I founded Laya Kaluluwa, which means free soul in Tagalog. And it's basically where I do all of my offerings, including spiritual gifts, integration coaching, womb healing ceremonies, intuitive readings. I do ancestral mediumship, and I just started to offer past life healings as well. So that's new. Um, and lately, I just created a new post that's now highlighted on my page, and it includes BIPOC pricing. Today, we're going to be talking with Alycia, who is a former coaching client of mine. We entered coaching through different circumstances, and so it was a bit shorter than my average 6-month container. This is for anyone who's interested in the coaching with me, just for you to get a better idea of what it's like to work with me, what you can expect in terms of growing your gifts and, following your intuition. And so, Alycia, if you wanted to just share a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Alycia. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a personal trainer. I'm a wellness coach. I'm a menstrual health coach and educator. I'm an artist. And yeah, I recently finished my coaching with Iris about a month and a half ago. And I know that we'll dive into all the details in a little bit, but that is a bit about me.
First question I want to ask you is just how are you feeling about your gifts before we started coaching?
So I've definitely have always had mediumship and spiritual gifts since I was a kid. Remember my dreams, I think at around 3 years old, I started dreaming very vividly, and I also would feel spirits in my space.
Mhm.
And from about 2 or 3 years old until I was 6 years old, I would wake up every night at 3 a.m. because I would feel just things walking around in my room. And I always woke up at the same time to go to my mom's room, and she would give me some chocolate milk and bring me back to bed. But I didn't know how to deal with it at first, and it was very spooky. And then when we moved into a different house, I experienced the same exact thing, where from 7 years old until I was about 12 or 11, I would feel spirits in my room. But this time, as I was getting a little older, like I wasn't just gonna go to my parents' room. So I learned to kind of make a shield with blankets to kind of shield myself from the rest of the room because I would feel so much and I would see so much. And it wasn't even that these spirits were evil. It was just that I was so sensitive and I did not know what to do with it. And it was very intense for me to feel because I didn't know who to talk to. And growing up in a very religious household and family, they probably would have thought that the devil was in me or something. So I was like, I'm going to just keep this to myself. So I never actually shared this with my parents. I mean, and when I would vocalize it, I would just be like, "Oh, I'm scared." Like I wouldn't really get into why. Um, and since I was a kid, I've lucid dreamed a lot, a lot. To this day, I still lucid dream. And people that have passed away, most of them have visited me in my dreams. And I'll never forget one memory that comes up vividly is I was going through a really tough time when I was about 19. I was in a toxic relationship, and my friend who passed away about a year prior to that visited me in my dream, and she was like, "You need to be happy. You're not happy and you need to smile." And she was just giving me all this advice, which was very timely for what I was going through. And then yeah, oh, throughout the years, like my grandfather, he passed away about 13 years ago, and he visits me in my dreams almost once a year. And for a few years, he was visiting me 2 or 3 times. And it felt like each time he visited me, he was healing a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. Um, and My third eye has always been pretty open. I've always been able to see energy, feel things. I can walk into a room and be like, oh my God, I'm depressed, but I'm not depressed. It's just there's energy, and I can start to feel depressed because of what I feel so deeply. Um, so I've always had these gifts. So before coaching, I've dabbled in different practices from different cultures, but ultimately I was left feeling like, how do I do this safely? Who do I talk to about this? How do I expand my gifts in a way that's safe? Because let's be real, there is evil on the planet, there is demonic energy. And what I do know is that we can unintentionally open portals or open communication or a doorway to certain evil or demonic energy, not because we're trying to, but because we may not know how to properly use our gifts. So that was big for me. And I would definitely say what helped me was just coming back to my indigenous spiritual practices, the way that my ancestors practiced spirituality. And that just coincided with working with you.
Thank you for sharing that. And the stories that you shared about loved ones visiting you in your dreams, giving you messages about your toxic relationship, like yeah, it just goes to show that all of these things are real. And because there's a lot of people who I think are curious about this coaching because maybe no one's validated them that those are real experiences, those are real visitations. The lucid dreaming, it's like we hear these words, but sometimes it feels a little bit like fake or exaggerated. But I think just hearing people's lived experiences can help to just validate like this is real for all of us. And like Alycia was saying, it's also our indigenous like healing abilities and traditions. Like this is nothing new. They've had it for so long too. And um the only thing is like in recent years, like if you don't have family members or someone around you who can guide you and kind of like normalize your experiences, then you're kind of left to figure it out for yourself. And sometimes you personally don't know if what you're doing is like a safe way to practice it. Are you closing things up after you do like spell work and things like that? You kind of already answered the second question a little bit, which was like, what were your intentions going into coaching? But yeah, if there's anything you wanted to add on to what you shared, like, am I doing this safely? Did you have any other intentions beside that?
Over the last, I would say, probably 6 years ago, I started reconnecting more with um, the spirituality of my indigenous ancestors, which are Taino, Arawak Taino from the Caribbean, and along with other cultures. And when I would take psychedelic plant medicine, like I've sat with ayahuasca, I've sat with psilocybin, I've sat with DMT, and along with non-psychoactive plant medicine like hape, I would always see, always see so much. And it started to make me question, well, how can I activate this while being safe? So yeah, I would say that's pretty much the answer is just wanting to do it safely because I had an experience back in 2018 or 19 where I went to this spiritual wellness event and there was different workshops. And one of the workshops, this woman was like, "Oh, I'm going to channel these extraterrestrial beings and share wisdom." And the moment she started channeling, two of my friends got up and left because they felt like icky. And afterward, and I stayed because I was curious, but then afterward, I also felt icky. And I was like, I don't know if she really knows what she's channeling. I don't really know what her practices are opening and closing it. So, yeah, for me is just being safe. How can I yeah, tap into my gifts safely? How can I connect to the spirit world safely? And how can I keep my space protected? And quick side note, I won't go too much into this. Last week I had a dream that I was that there was a little girl that came to me and she needed help because spiritually she was being attacked. And I went and so she brought me to her room and we put salt in all corners of her room, which reminds me of what I started doing for my own protection, which is funny how I had a dream about that. So it's really about the safety for me. Um, and and also knowing how to go little by little into the development of my gifts.
I know each time was a little bit different. Like sometimes we would work on like just the protection or like even how to set up your room in a way that helps to protect you when you're asleep. All of these things. And then there's times where I would be guided to do more like intuitive channeling for like a guided meditation or a guided journey. And so as we started going on like the coaching journey together, what did you find the most like interesting?
So something about working with Iris is that so she would guide me into connecting with some of my benevolent ancestors and guides. And there was one moment where I was like on a long canoe because that's what my ancestors used to get around. And there was a moment where, and this isn't the only time it happened. This happened a few other times where she would be channeling something that I was also hearing. Either I would be hearing it at the same time that she's speaking it, or I hear it and then she says it, which was very interesting to me as to how connected things are. Because let's be real, sometimes the ego can be like, is this real? Am I making this up? But there was no way that I was going to hear literally almost pretty much verbatim what Iris was saying to me, which I didn't need confirmation. I've always pretty much been in tune and known, but sometimes it is really nice to hear confirmation. And in that moment, I also got to see a lot of ancestors. I think we don't realize how much we are surrounded by them. So I would say that was one of the most interesting things. What was also interesting was kind of the way that Iris would, so like what I loved what you would do, you would give me homework about protection. You would say, okay, these are the different ways you can protect your space. But then my ancestor, it's almost like you and my ancestors connected because, for example, there was one time where Iris, you were like, these are the different ways to protect your space. So your homework for the next 2 weeks is you're going to set up your space and protect it. And I'm like, great. And then I ended up sitting down in a meditation and connecting with one of my benevolent ancestors who frequently shows up. And she pretty much was like, salt. Salt is the way that you're going to protect your space. And I was like, oh, yeah, I can put salt in all the corners of my room. And then Iris was like saying that I think one of her mentors or someone, Iris, correct me if I'm wrong, that you learned putting a bowl of salt water either near you when you're doing a workshop and how you said like put that under my bed. So it was interesting that you would get to tell like guide me to the next thing to do, but then my ancestors were like, yes, use salt. Um because I also think it depends where you live. Like my ancestors probably weren't really using crystals. They used a lot of herbs and sea salt and fans made out of banana leaves, right? So I thought that was also very interesting how there was an alignment there because I was like, where am I going to find crystals that are sustainable and ethical? And then I sat down in meditation maybe a day or two after that and received, you're going to use salt.
And I love that you shared that because, like you said, like what were our ancestors using? Where did they live on the planet? Because crystals are more of a newer thing. I mean, not really. Like it's been around, but it's because there are certain groups around the world that live near where there was an abundance of crystals and used that. But maybe my ancestors used like seashells. It's cool when you connect directly to your ancestors. They'll give you more information and it might like because my coaching style is so intuitive, so it's kind of like what I'm hearing for you is like well, I also use the bowl of salt water, but sometimes when I just hear something, I'm like, oh, okay, why don't you try this? It might match up with something that you directly hear from like your own spirit team. I also wanted to ask you, like, so you said you saw a lot of your ancestors on the boat. Um, and out of your ancestors and that spirit team that you talked to, like, are those people that you've seen before? Have you talked to them before, or was this your first time, like, getting to know them? And how has your relationship with them grown since, like, meeting them on that boat?
So I have not seen or spoken to any of them in person, except for one of them was my grandfather, who I think I mentioned earlier, frequently has visited me in my dreams. So he was there for sure. And then I saw an older version of myself, which was interesting. But as far as everyone else, I hadn't met them yet. I haven't met them in person. And as far as how the relationship is going, we're still going, getting to know each other slowly. And what I've been doing a lot the last few weeks is just inviting them in for daily things. When I'm dancing, when I'm hiking, I went for a walk through the forest on Thanksgiving Day because there's so much mourning and heavy energy with Thanksgiving and the massacre of a few different indigenous tribes. So I was like, I need to go to the forest and give an offering and pray. And I invited them in, and I'm just walking through the forest and just literally talking out loud, speaking. First, I'm giving thanks to the forest, and then I'm inviting my benevolent ancestors and guides to just be here with me. And it felt like a very full walk. I didn't feel like I walked alone. Um, and that was really beautiful. So I think I think when we first started coaching, I was really focused on, I want to get to know them. I want to get to know them. I want to get to know them. But then what I realized when we ended our coaching, and this might answer another question, I don't know, was that I want them to get to know me. I didn't want it to just be like, what can I extract out of you? Help me do this. How can I be a better human? How can I? What do you have to share with me instead? Although that's important, I was like, well, let them get to know me. Come with me when I walk in the forest. Come with me when I'm go to my dance class. Come with me when I'm going roller skating. Come with me when I'm going out dancing at this party. I know it might sound like nothing, but and I know that they're always with me, but I feel like there's a difference between like, okay, them being there versus I'm intentionally calling to you to be here with me. Um, So I've been taking my time with getting to know them because I've also been taking time with having them get to know me.
I love that you shared that because that's something that I try to mention when I do the intro to mediumship workshop is it's not always about asking for things. Like they want a reciprocal relationship where, like you said, they get to know you and you bring them along on your adventures. Like recently I just went to San Diego and I drove the whole thing by myself. It was like 8 hours one way. And I invited them on the road trip because I was like, you know what? I have no one to talk to and I could listen to podcasts or whatever, which I kind of did, but I also just spent time like talking to them and like enjoying the scenery and just kind of saying like, wow, this is really cool that we get to like do this now. And like my ancestors, like yeah, the past ones, like I feel like I don't even know if they got to go to San Diego before. So it was like a new experience for all of us. I feel like a lot of the people that I work with are typically Filipino because they see me and they're like, hey, like you might understand what I'm going through. I wanted to ask you, like, did you feel any sort of connection through both being like women of color and was that helpful for you in like finding comfort throughout this journey?
100%. Yes. I want to learn from women of color. And although um, I'm not Filipino, I feel like there is still a common thread of our ancestors who were people of color faced some sort of colonization and discrimination and lived really closely with the earth and nature and elements. So I feel like you coach in a way. I mean, at least I don't know if am I the only client that you've coached that's not Filipino?
I don't
Or
think so. I think there's one other, no, two other people, but
okay,
yeah.
because I was gonna say you keep it open. Like it seems like you probably tailor it to where the person's culture is because I remember that when you first guided me through connecting with my ancestors, or it might have even been on the intro to mediumship call. It might have been both times that you guide me to a place that not only feels safe, but a place where my ancestors would be, which gives me the open space to go to where my ancestors would be from, which gives the space for anyone that works with you, no matter where they come from. You're the guide that can guide them to where their ancestry comes from, even if you don't share that. So that's something that I really liked because I feel like, yeah, you were just able to guide me to my own um, ancestors in that way.
Yeah, I definitely try to keep it open, like you said, because I don't know where everyone's ancestors are from. And so each person, when I guide them, is connecting to their own ancestors. So I feel like leaving things more open gives their ancestors like the space to actually create that environment with them. So you do a lot of womb work, and that's a big part of your medicine and what you share with people. Um, so what was this journey like for you as someone who's very connected to their womb, who's been doing a lot of inner healing work? Like, did this kind of complement what you already do? Did you feel anything even activate in your womb? I don't think I even asked you this before, but I just kind of am curious. Like,
It definitely allowed me to receive messages more clearly. And considering that the womb is our major creative center, that also represents death and rebirth, coinciding, and you were there for this, coinciding coaching with you, I ended up closing down a business. Um, And in my womb, it was like, yes. Like in my womb, in my body, it was like, yes. So I definitely feel like it's made me more sensitive, even more than I already was going into it. Like literally so sensitive to the point where, anyway, this is might be off topic, but I just notice in certain social settings, I'm just like, whoa. I'm like just picking up a lot from people, but it's definitely um added a lot more sensitivity to the connection to my womb. And I feel like I am hearing even more clear than I thought I already was.
and you mentioned like, yeah, you did close down your business like at the end of our coaching. Um, and something I want to share real quick is that's kind of a common thing in this coaching container. It's kind of like if something's not aligned for you anymore, it kind of just it either leaves during or at the end, but it's kind of like there's this crescendo of like, okay, we're building this connection to your intuition. We're doing all these things, and so there's gonna be a ripple effect in your reality of like whatever is not meant to stay with you as you continue on this path of alignment, it just naturally starts to fall away. I've had someone who lost her job in the middle of coaching and she was just kind of freaking out. And um, what was interesting though was that like she had been telling me, she gets really anxious at work. It just doesn't feel aligned in XYZ ways. And so the fact that it wasn't in her control and then there was the job loss, there was also this beautiful transition into like very aligned work for her throughout the coaching. And I thought that was really cool because it's kind of a disclaimer I tell people when they do their first connection call with me is that like, hey, this is a very like alive container. Like, we're gonna be doing a lot of work together, but I feel like the universe is also gonna be doing moving things for you, kind of like a chessboard. And if things, aren't meant to stay, like sometimes you have to just be willing to let it go. And I think it's helpful to have a coach hold you through that as you like transition out of something or into something new. Um, and you talked about like death and rebirth. So, how did it feel when you realized you said your womb said yes, but was it something you had a feeling was coming maybe even like months before that this was gonna close, or did it just come like
I
spontaneously?
knew that it was coming. Because let's see, I made the decision officially to close in September. And I would say even a year ago, actually. Like between last August to December, I was just feeling like I was just running the business because it was already up and running. It's what I knew. Um, but starting to question what would this look like if I did something else and I wasn't feeling as lit up by it. Um, and I think the combination of being connected to my body and my womb and connecting to my spiritual gifts and receiving more messages just confirmed everything that it was time for me to let it go. And now it kind of feels like my womb almost feels empty, not in a negative way, but there's nothing in there incubating right now. And it's kind of nice where it's like, I think it's okay to just be empty. But diving into my spiritual gifts has allowed me um, to surrender and to be okay because I know that whatever I need to receive is going to come through. I don't need to force it. I don't need to it doesn't have to be like such a big explosion of receiving divine wisdom every day. Sometimes it's just simple. But I will say I've been seeing hawks a lot again, which is one of my spirit animals. I see them all the time, but I specifically see them when something is about to change or when I'm going through some sort of growth. And I feel like before coaching, when I was still kind of forcing myself to be in this business, I stopped seeing them. And then as I started the coaching and I started to be like, what would my life be like without this business? Now I see them all the time again. So that's been very interesting as well.
It must feel so freeing to give yourself this space now and focus on other things. Like you said, it's not about forcing it. I think it can be really uncomfortable for a lot of us, myself included, when you're in a transition period. You don't really know how long you're going to be in this void of the unknown. But it is like a very important life skill to be able to learn how to surrender and um, how to receive. And I think that is like, in my opinion, a strength through this coaching is like, because it's the same way that you receive through your gifts. Like, you have to let yourself receive either the vision or the answers, the things that you hear, things that you feel. And so it translates into like your like actual life and waiting for that opportunity or that next project and just kind of being okay to sit still, like you said, when your womb is empty and there's nothing new that wants to be birthed. I feel like when you're on a different track of like, okay, now you're co-creating with the universe and you're making this reality together, and it's one that's actually in alignment, then you realize like, oh, everything's on divine timing. Like I actually don't have much control, and all I can do is like listen, wait, be patient, um, do the things I've learned already. For me, I feel like that time period where there is a void is like, oh, this is when you start to implement all the things you've already learned. Like, you don't just move on to the next thing. they're giving you time to like integrate that. Do you have any wisdom you want to share with someone who might be watching and is going through that time period? Like how can they start to surrender?
Well, I think it's really important that I say this. This coaching with you is not about, I'm going to become a medium so that I can be a medium for people. It's about learning more about who you are. It's about uncovering all the layers on top of who you actually are. And I would say what has helped me surrender is when I remember and I tune into my gifts that remind me I'm infinite, that remind me that I'm guided, that remind me that I have everything I need, that helps me to surrender because it's and it's not easy to surrender. But when you allow your gifts to keep you connected to creator, to your ancestors, to the unseen parts of this life that really keep everything going and keep us vibrating, I feel like it makes it that much better to surrender. Whereas when you have no connection to anything, well, it's even harder to surrender because what do you have to believe in? Where's your faith? What do you have to be faithful in? So when you're going through moments where it's hard to surrender or it's unknown or you don't know what to do next, look to creator or God, the most high, whatever word you want to use for the creator of everything. Look to connecting to your benevolent ancestors. Look to prayer and meditation and the things that help to keep us grounded and to remind us that we are okay and that ultimately it's going to be okay. And I think that's really what I've taken away from this coaching is not so much that now I'm going to have a mediumship business, right? It's not about that. It's about, wow, I've learned about myself a little bit deeper. And in that, that has created such a ripple effect in my life, in my entire life as a whole.
But the whole point is, yeah, you connect deeper with yourself so that you do connect with like this higher power. Because I think you were saying something along the lines of like, yeah, what are you surrendering to? We're not just surrendering for the sake of like, okay, I don't know what's going on. I'm just gonna lay here. But there's has to be this faith rooted in something outside of us, something, well, it's actually not outside of us. It is us, which is why you said, connecting deeper to ourselves. Thank you for sharing that. And I would want to ask you too, like, how would you describe me as a coach and what is it like to experience my coaching style?
It was so amazing to work with you. I love your coaching style. Um, Again, because it's open and you show up at the right amount. In other words, it's not coddling, but it's also not lack of presence. It's the perfect amount of showing up. And what I mean by that is there would be moments where maybe I would ask you a question and you would tell me, "Well, how do you feel about that?" Like instead of you answering the question that maybe I'm looking for an answer to, you would tell me, "Well, maybe that's a question for you. How do you feel about that? You check in with yourself." Right? Um, or even just not being dogmatic with the protection, right? Not being like, you need to get crystals, and me being like, hey, my ancestors told me use salt. And you were like, great. That's your ancestors coming through and communicating to you. So it's the openness. It's also redirecting because oftentimes I think it's just a human thing that we're still evolving through. We will ask somebody else a question that we really know we need to ask ourselves. And it's that part of us that maybe still seeks, I don't know if it's validation or if we're not sure because we already know the answer, but maybe we're not too sure of it. So I love the way that you redirect some of those questions back to me because ultimately, yeah, I mean, only I can answer that. Um, and I loved how if I did have a question or a request or something, you've told me that you need to check in with yourself and maybe your spirit team and see what's up instead of just giving me an answer to please me because like, we want to make sure our clients are happy, right? But that doesn't mean that that should be at the expense of our boundaries. So, you have really good boundaries with yourself, and that's really important because if you have good boundaries with yourself, then that means the work you're bringing forward is that much more potent and sacred because you're not just open and saying yes to everyone and answering questions when maybe it would benefit the person if they answered the question themselves. Um, and I would say one of my favorite things, because I feel like I'm this way as a coach as well, is being the flexibility within the sessions. So even if you had an intention of something we were going to do in a session, if we got on the call and I'm feeling this, or I feel like I need to share, or we need to catch up about something, or there's this one thing that still needs to be worked with, that you're flexible to realize, okay, maybe this needs the attention. Maybe what I had intentions for can wait for another time. And I think that's important because when it comes to working with spirituality and your spiritual gifts, it's not something that's boxed in. It's not something that's linear. And I really appreciate that because you can't go in to this thinking it's going to be week 1, week 2, week 3. For some things it can be. If you're doing a course, yeah, for some things you can go week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. But ultimately, when you're uncovering your own gifts, as you uncover who you are and what you're capable of, that also has to dictate where the coaching is going to go. And I think that's important because some coaches will just keep to their agenda instead of going with the flow of what the energy is like with you. And that's big for me. So I thank you for that because that flex, it's just like life. We can't plan life. You can have intentions for what you want to do, but things are going to change. There has to be a level of flexibility. Um, so I would say that. And yeah, just the warm, encouraging energy that you would give me, um, where maybe I would feel hesitant to share certain things with certain people, but with you, you're just like, yeah, no, I've gone through that too, and I'm just like, okay, cool. I am not alone. I have a mirror. Like you are such a reflection. And I believe that when people work together, there's some sort of resonance there and that there will be reflecting back and forth. Um, and the way you listen is really important because as you listen, you learn what to work on and learn where to start with people because yeah, people are going to be at different levels. So you saw me at the level I was at, just like you're going to see all of your clients at the level that they are at. And that's really important because you're not going to just throw someone into something without there being some sort of foundation. And I think that's really important that you meet your clients where they're at, you know? Um, and yeah, just feeling like I think we both co-created a safe space together where I just felt really open to share a lot.
But the last question for everything I have prepared is like, what would you say to someone who's thinking about getting coaching, but maybe they're on the fence or they are kind of unsure still, like what they're getting into? Like,
I would say to go for it because it has changed my life. And I'm not biased because of this experience, but I am also a coach. So not only have I gotten to be the client, but I also know what it's like to work with clients. And again, Iris will meet you where you are at. And it's not going to be a cookie cutter formula. It's going to be 100% customized to what you are needing. And if there's been any doubt about your gifts, you will get to know yourself working with Iris in a safe way, in an integral way, because Iris is also very aware of just like ethical practices and preserving indigenous wisdom, no matter what color you are, right? We all have ancestry that we can connect to, we all have gifts that we can tap into. So I would say go for it because it's hard, unfortunately, to find integral people. And if you want somebody who's integral, who will guide you, who will, you know, also make sure you're doing what you have to do, because in order to build the foundation, we got to do what we have to do, or then we're not going to progress to the other things we also want to do, right? But yeah, I would say go for it. And it's all any relationship you enter is a risk. When you enter a container where you're working with a coach, it's no different than if you're dating and getting to know someone. It's no different than being in a friendship. You both have to put the effort. So it's not just going to be you there and Iris doing everything. You also have to put something in. You have to be willing to surrender. You have to be willing to show up, willing to look at yourself, willing to change your routine a little bit to accommodate the things that you're learning, willing to be open. And as long as you show up like that, Iris will guide you in the ways that you are needing in those moments.
As the coach, like you're not here to do the work for somebody else. And so if they're put, you get what you put into it. And I put that in the beginning email because I want people to know, like, hey, when you sign up for this, there's a level of commitment that is required to actually get something from these like 6 months together. I guess the last question is just if there's any final things you feel called to share, either about like where you are now on your journey or just anything about the experience. I just wanted to leave like some room for that too.
Wow. So, without making this too long, I will say that I've really been enjoying just kind of reiterating from before, just enjoying having my ancestors, calling them in to be with me, but calling them in safely. And the reminder that there are benevolent spirits and evil spirits. There are spirits that want to just mooch off of you because they like your energy. And then there's spirits that actually want to help you. So it's more than just like calling upon your ancestors. Like you have to really call upon your benevolent ancestors. You have to be specific. Um, and I guess something that sticks out to me is this recent um, Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, which is a few days, spans over a few days. But on October 31st, I made an ancestral altar, which was my first time doing that. Like a separate altar, not on my already altar, like a completely separate thing
That's so
for the
exciting.
ancestors.
I
Yeah,
love I love whenever people tell me that. I'm like, yes, I love it.
because they were like, you need to make a specific one for us. I was like, okay. So I did. And I had my boyfriend's grandmother come through. I saw a vision of like a fence and a wooden building. Like I saw a lot. And that was the first time that I ever felt like that connected. And I even cried because, let's see, last March, a close family friend was murdered. And I grieved and I felt all that through last year. But then I feel like this year I kind of like, not that I forgot, but grief is interesting. Sometimes you don't think about it. And she came up and I cried and I was like, oh, I still have a little grief here still. So that was powerful. So I just notice in my day to day, I'm more sensitive to things, even more than I already was. Um, and especially when going out into nature, it feels like I'm going into a party. I'm like, there's a lot of forest spirits in here. I'm always like, hello, thank you for letting me be here. I am grateful. Giving more offerings to the earth and just giving more thanks to the lands that I step on. And what's really coming up for me as of late too is tapping into that deep ancestral strength, courage. I can do this. Go for what you want to do. You have us here with you. Um, and yeah, I've just noticed that my life has changed. I joined a dance program, which I've been wanting to do. That's been going great. It's been challenging me. I just feel like since doing this program, it has finally made it clear that I need to do what I've been wanting to do. I can't just keep doing what I think I should be. I need to do really what my soul has been calling for. So that consisted of me shutting a business down, joining dance school in the same week. I like joined dance school, shut my business down. Um, my personal train. So one of my first business is a personal training business. That is booming. Like in a once I made those decisions, second business closed. I'm joining dance school. I'm gonna live my life. Personal training business booms. Realizing how much gratitude I need to give to that, and now I'm just here wanting to continue to grow and shine and really do what I want to do because my soul is calling for it, not because it's comfortable or because what society thinks or because I've been doing this thing for 8 years, so I should keep doing it. No, you can stop doing something, even if you've been doing it for a long time. You can stop it and do something else. You can change, you can pivot. So that's really what's been coming up for me. And I'm really grateful that I've had the space to, you know, grow and tune in more to myself and the gifts. And I'm just excited to see throughout this process as I continue to connect more to my gifts, what's going to come out, because I know it's going to continue to change my entire life. So thank you for just being such a great soul and doing this work that you're being called to do because it shows.
Oh, thank you. It was such a pleasure to coach you for 3 months and witness your growth. I feel like what you said, like closing down a business and then, starting dance school in the same week, I think that would kind of terrify a lot of people. It's like, what's gonna happen? Am I gonna still make money? And am I gonna be able to pay rent? Da da da. And yet somehow, like, when you started to connect more with your ancestors, like your courage and your bravery, like that they had was also like reignited in you. And then your personal training like pops off. So were you surprised by that like outcome?
It happened so fast, but
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't more of a surprise. It was more like a, is this real? What is
Yeah.
happening right now? Just yesterday, I was driving and I was like, I can't believe this is happening. So, no, it's taken me like 2 months to kind of integrate. I think I'm still integrating actually.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
crazy. But
yeah.
that's also so exciting. Like I can't wait to see how this continues to like grow. Because I feel like when you really make room for your gifts, like you can't really predict how you're gonna like how things are gonna move forward because it's gonna be very in the moment and you're gonna just feel called to do something one day. Yeah, if you wanted to share like if people wanted to work with you or like, follow your page. Well, I know you're in transition, so I don't know if you wanted to plug.
You can follow me at Embracing Cycles. The name will change soon, but for now it is there if you want to follow me at Embracing Cycles. I am currently offering no services other than my local personal training business because
Yeah.
I need to service myself.
Period. Thank you everyone for watching. I have another episode coming soon, so that'll be out maybe by January, but I hope you enjoyed today's episode and you learned something from both of us. Alycia shared a lot of wisdom today, and so um yeah, if anybody's ready to book their connection call with me, that's available on my website. And it's a no pressure, no commitment right away call. It just gives us a chance to talk more about any questions you might have, anything you need to clarify before moving forward. Um, so yeah.